Don't mind me, I'm only dying slow. Today on Fortitude through Stoicism, and this is my 365-day journey of implementing the ancient philosophy of Stoicism into the life of this modern masculine man. So pretty morbid this month. It's all about death, accepting that reality. And today's quote again is from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Remember, he is arguably one of the most powerful men to have ever lived. He was the Roman emperor at the very peak of the Roman Empire. And these meditations were never meant for public consumption. These were his personal journals. Remember, this is the most powerful man to have ever lived. And he's giving himself wisdom and knowledge and reflection. And so today, the quote, "Let each thing you would do, say or intend to be like that of a dying person." So, have you ever heard someone say, what would you do if you found out you had cancer? We talked about this yesterday, right? We talked about this. What would you do if you went to the doctor and all of a sudden found out you had a life-threatening heart condition, right? You had to change your diet, you had to start exercising. Now, the majority of people do. Sadly, the majority of people rely on medication and don't. But a lot of people, it's a wake-up call. You find out you have cancer. People change their whole lives. It defines them, right? It does. If you talk to someone who has cancer, it literally fucking defines them. Because they got a death sentence. They were given a terminal death sentence. So they start living their life differently. Newsflash, you have a death sentence too. You have a terminal illness right now. Every single person has the moment they are born, they get the death sentence. With life comes death. That is the circle of life. Now, there are some people, I'm gonna use my Aunt Patty. Man, she's just, she squirreled away money her whole life, did all the right things, took care of her teeth. I remember I used to never see her drink a coffee or a diet soda or anything without using a straw because she wanted to take care of the whiteness of her teeth. And, I notice patterns about that in people. I see the people who really pay attention to detail. Guilty. I've become one of those people. The reason why I bring up my Aunt Patty is it's almost like she always had her stuff together, right? I mean, she did. She had a great career at Central Hudson, went all the way up the corporate ladder there, had investments her whole life. Like most women, she picked, one of the wrong guys and had had to split the difference there, and then had to redo it all over again. But she was always kind. She was always compassionate. And the reason why I think about dying slow is in our family, the women, the birth side, they lived forever. My grandma was one of 13. One died crossing the frozen St. Lawrence during the Great Depression at 6 months old, and they were leaving Canada on foot in the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of the Great Depression, in the deep middle of the winter, just to find food, right? Think about the perseverance of that. So one child died at 6 months old. The rest lived past 90. And they just were hard people. Even my Uncle Buck lived, and he was a miner. Miners don't live long. And that old boy lived into his 90s. Took off his finger one time, chipping kindling wood. Son of a bitch put that axe in the fire, wrapped it in the snot rag, yelled for a beer, cauterized it. Men were different back then. Men were different. The thing that remains the same is hard life still died. We have people now, really easy life, still die. And when you see people, especially on their gravestone, right? And we've all heard, the analogy. It's not it's not, the birthday. It's not your death day. It's the dash in between that really matters. And they leave that part off your gravestone, don't they? So that's what the Stoics believe, and that's really what I'm honing in on this lesson today. Is that I know I'm going to die. What will be said about me on my death is typically not something a Stoic would really consider. But if, as a man, let me tell you something right now. As a man, I'm going to share something with you. This is some real insight. I'm 46 years old. I visit 2 to 3 businesses every single week. Many of these are owned by baby boomer men. And a spouse, maybe. But most of these businesses are owned by baby boomer men. And let me tell you, these guys are very much thinking about their mortality. And once you get to the end, there's a lot of reflection on how you live that life. So the thing that I'm learning, and the reason why I've focused so much on character building and so much on adopting these lessons from these different philosophies, from some of the greatest minds to have ever lived. Again, Aristotle the reason why we call it physics is because he called it physics, right? Physica, the impacts of these greatest minds. So I almost feel that I'd be disingenuous to my own value if I didn't listen and learn and take from that what I will. Now, Dr. James Orr in Jordan Peterson Academy talks about philosophy. Once they start getting into, the turn of the millennia, it starts to become like a smorgasbord. Like you're taking different ideas that you like from different philosophies, but isn't that what I'm feeling is I don't want to put a label on, hey, I'm a Stoic, hey, I'm a Buddhist. I want to be a great person. That's the goal, right? I want to be a great person. I want to free myself from this lifelong suffering that I've had, and I know that's on me, right? That I've learned. I am going to die. And I don't know when that's going to be. All I know is that now every single day I feel is under a microscope. It's a reflection of who I am and how I lived. The how is so much more important than the who. The how touches so many other people. The who is irrelevant. It's really the how and the dash that I'm concerned about. So, once you realize you have a death sentence, according to Ryan Holiday, back to the Daily Stoic, it will have a profound impact on you. But we're not mindful about that, right? Most of us, and let's just take an American, right? The American average person lives their world in denial and distractions. It's fact. Here are some facts. Present course, the United States will go bankrupt. It's inevitable. But everyone just puts their head in the sand, doesn't give a shit. They keep going to the till like it doesn't matter. Those are all facts, right? Fact, you are going to die. Man, I was on a plane yesterday. I was supposed to go through Dulles. And at the last minute, they shifted me to Ohio. Now, if you watch the news, there was a little accident in Dulles. American Airlines plane hit a helicopter, military helicopter. Could have been me. Could have been me. Very close could have been me. This is the reality. So, if that could have been me yesterday, my impact on the world would have been how I lived that day up until I got on that plane. Now, my truth. I've had some road bumps along the way. Got knocked down, been arrested. Had a foreclosure, bankruptcy, divorce. My kids changed their last name for mine. I've had a lot of bad stuff happen to me. Bad. Because I used to put my perception on those things. Number one, I know nothing. The more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And I do this every day. Every day. Every day I'm reading. The books pile up, the lessons pile up, the lectures pile up, the mentors pile up, the knowledge piles up. The bigger my mental library gets, I realize there will never be enough time. There won't be. Because I may die today. And there's a lot of lessons that I have yet to learn. There's a lot of things I've yet to study. I walk the path of wisdom. And it's a long path, and I'm not done. But the reality is, I have to live my life because I have a death sentence. Mine's probably going to be cancer if life plays out the way it should. I'm guessing, maybe mid-60s probably, family history. I don't have control over that. I have control over the way I live. Do I know that, hey, going in the sauna 4 days a week, 20 minutes a time will reduce my risk of heart disease by 50%? I do know that, so I do that. Now, that's me giving my effort, but I have to accept the outcome, right? Do I understand that smoking cigarettes and some of these other things, inhaling and ingesting carcinogens was a bad thing? Well, yeah, that's why I don't do it, right? Do I understand that living a life of fitness and nutrition, lower body mass index, all these things lead to the lower risk of diabetes? We know that diabetes leads to many things, including Alzheimer's and dementia, type 3 diabetes, right? So I'm doing the things that are in my power, in my control, to live my life the very best it's going to be. And whether I crash on my plane tomorrow going home, or I live until 90, there's some amount of fate to that. Now, in philosophy, and we'll wrap up with this, in philosophy, there's really kind of like two kind of thoughts, right? Is there a divine being, like in Stoicism we call it logos, right? There's this universal power, or is it like the Epicurean type philosophy where we're just random atoms that are smashing together and it's complete randomness? Complete fate due to universal these atoms, which can't be cut. They that's what it was. How they visualize these things. They just bounce off each other and create this randomness. There's a huge debate on both sides. By the way, Karl Marx, that atom theory. So be careful. So there's schools of different thought here. But in my terms, in my layman, me, little me, I know nothing. So the one thing I'm convinced of, all the things I know very little. The things I do know, I'm going to challenge. And the last thing that I'm certainly convinced of is I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm convinced. I know it's going to happen. I have a plan. I have a plan to take care of me if I live a long life. But I will never live forever. I'll never live forever. And I know artificial consciousness, they can take this, do this, all this other. No, my body will cease to work at some point. No matter what the technology is, no matter what, I am an organic being and I have a timestamp. So do you. That's it. That's it. So when you realize that, are you going to kick the can down the road on life and be like, fuck it. I'm going to die anyway. It makes no sense in putting effort into it. Because then your dash will be meaningless. Sure, you'll have a start date and an end date, and your dash will be virtually worthless. Me, on the other hand, I want that dash to mean something. That's why I live a life of virtue through Stoicism. I'm seeking and walking a path of wisdom, Buddhism. I'm a constant lifelong learner because honestly, because I know I'm going to die, every second matters. And that is why I don't waste my energy on shitty people. And that is why I have such high standards. And on that, I gotta get my ass in the shower.